Getting stuck at the same rank for a long time can be extremely frustrating. Even though you're putting in the effort, players that were once worse than you start to pass you while you stay the same. The amount of time you spend seemingly doesn't matter. You never rank up, no matter how much you try to improve. Talent isn't the reason why you're stuck. There is a real reason behind it, and it can be fixed with enough understanding. This isn't something that only happens to you, and many people who are once stuck have been able to fix their problems and start improving again. Unfortunately, this is a process that is much easier said than done. So I'll teach you how to fix your game sense when you're stuck. Being hard stuck means you spent multiple months or even years without being able to get to the next rank. Every rank has walls that separate each other. Failing to pass the wall means you don't have the game sense that's required for the next rank. The primary reason why a player can't pass the wall is because they have a foundation with too many flaws. When players are playing in matches, they'll naturally learn from the things they experience. The lessons you naturally take in from each game are how you've been able to improve to the level you're currently at. But somewhere along the line, you ended up learning the wrong lesson. When you learn the wrong lesson and apply it to your gameplay naturally, it becomes a flaw in your foundation that can slow your progress down. The more cracks you have in your foundation, the less you're able to build on top of it. If the cracks in your foundation go too deep, you'll be completely unable to progress, no matter how much you try. In order to stop being hard stuck, you will need to fix your broken foundation. Fixing a broken foundation might seem simple at first, but unfortunately, this is something that's very difficult to do. When it comes to game sense, people will naturally have different strengths and weaknesses. This is because they learn the same lesson as everyone else, but have a different approach to dealing with the situation. These different approaches for dealing with the situation is how a playstyle is built. With so many variations, it can be extremely difficult to know exactly what went wrong along the way. There are many things that could go wrong, and each player will run into different issues that have different requirements to fix them. Even though each problem could be different, each issue will fortunately have some things in common. When it comes to the part of your foundation that's causing the issue, it's most likely from a concept that is important enough to affect every part of your gameplay. There are 3 concepts that are important enough to do this, and are almost guaranteed to have the problem hidden inside. These concepts are rotation, positioning, and patience. The reason why a concept goes wrong is always because you're either doing something too much or too aggressive, or too little or too passive. When you do something that leans too far towards either extreme, you'll find it hard to perform actions that are related to it. For concepts like these, leaning too far in one direction will affect multiple different parts of your gameplay at the same time. Now that we've narrowed it down to 3 concepts, it's time to know which concept is causing the issue, and which side of the spectrum you're leaning towards. Each of the 3 concepts that I mentioned will have different symptoms associated with it. I'll describe the issues that someone would commonly face when that specific concept is flawed. Your goal is to know which of these concepts fit your current situation the best, so we can then fix that part of your foundation. Also, it is possible for multiple concepts to be flawed at the same time, so don't worry too much if that's the case. We will go over both sides of the spectrum for each concept. If you are having problems with your rotation, you either don't have a proper sense of direction or find it unreasonably difficult to play with teammates for almost every single game you play. For the players on the passive side of rotation, they might feel lost. Each game feels like you are constantly trying to figure out when to cut in, instead of already knowing when you should. None of your decisions hold any real confidence, and you're just moving around hoping that the decision you made was correct. You don't know when to jump in, and you feel like your teammate has to do everything for you. Some players might feel like the game is out of their control. You want to include yourself in the play, but it just feels like you're making guesses and you are just a spectator in your own match. If you're on the aggressive side of rotation, you find it extremely difficult to play with teammates, because they never do the things you need them to. You're constantly having to race around the field to make up for your lacking teammate. Your teammates are never there when you need them. They are never ready for passes, they are always falling behind, and can never keep up with you. It feels like you don't even have a teammate, and you just have to do everything for them. You are literally doing everything, but the game always feels like it's out of your control. It doesn't matter how hard you try or how much you do. In the end, you will always lose. If you are having problems with your positioning, you are constantly having to make readjustments because your initial approach was wrong. If you're on the passive side of positioning, you might be seeing opportunities to go for the ball, but are always too far away to make a difference. It is extremely common for you to see an open net, but can never get there in time to shoot. You always see an opportunity to go, but you can never capitalize on anything. You might feel like it's impossible to create attacks, because every time you try to, it's always too late. They are already challenging you and you don't have enough time to do anything. You're never ready for anything, so it feels hard to do anything. If you're on the aggressive side of positioning, you find yourself needing to go back very often. It isn't that rare for you to be in situations where the opponent can just shoot the ball in your net and you won't be able to do anything about it. There are times where even though you're close to the ball, you can't do anything meaningful. Even though you're right next to it, the opponent can just easily challenge you and all you can do is watch. You find it extremely difficult to create attacks from your position. You might feel like your lack of mechanics is the reason why. Games might feel like all you're doing is correcting yourself and going back. You are so close to the play, but for some reason it feels hard to do anything. If you are having problems with your patience, you either find yourself constantly getting bad results from each challenge, or you tend to go at the wrong time. If you are a player that's too patient, you might feel like players just walk all over you, and you can never find a good time to challenge. It isn't uncommon for you to wait in hopes that the opponent will mess up. Waiting for the opponent to make a mistake is a good idea, but by the time you challenge, it ends up being too late. You might not have a good idea for when you should challenge, and some players might feel like they have moments where they're just completely useless. You might see chances to go, but you don't want to take the risk and challenge at the wrong time. It isn't that uncommon for players to have these symptoms, to be afraid of making a mistake, so they challenge way too late. If you are very impatient, you might feel like every time you challenge, the result you get from it isn't always ideal. Some challenges have bad 50s, and other challenges might just be you completely flying past the ball. You are constantly trying to go for the ball the second you're able to. You don't want to be a teammate that does nothing, so you always try to be useful and challenge whenever you see the opportunity to do so. Some players might even feel like they're forcing themselves to challenge, even when they're in awkward situations. It can almost feel like you're puppeteering yourself to go when you never needed to. Ranked might even feel a bit stressful, and for some players, it shows with how afraid they are of not being good enough. Something that you might have realized is that the symptoms that you have when playing on one side of the extreme will be nearly the same as the other side. This is because the concepts all affect the same parts of your gameplay when done incorrectly. The symptoms I described earlier most likely won't fully encapsulate your specific situation, but there will most likely be a few that are either very close to your situation or a combination of the concepts that fit. Now that we've gone over the common symptoms associated with each of these concepts, and how each side of the spectrum gets a similar problem, I'll be teaching you how to fix them. We will go over each of these three concepts and fix them one at a time. For rotation, the common issue is that players feel like the game is out of their control. Players with bad rotation often find themselves struggling to work with their teammates properly. Rotation has almost entirely to do with your pathfinding during a match. If you are in a team game mode, your rotation will have to account for other players. Having a major flaw in your rotation will change how difficult it is for you to work with others. The deeper the flaws in your rotation, the harder you'll find it to work with your teammates, and the more you feel like each game is out of your control. If you're on the aggressive side of rotation, it is difficult because you're cutting into the play far more than what's needed. All you're doing is increasing your workload while making it harder for your teammate to rotate properly. If you're on the passive side of rotation, you simply aren't involving yourself when your teammate needs you. In order to fix your rotation, you'll need to find the proper middle ground between the two extremes. Watching the situation is always the best way to know when you need to involve yourself. You don't need to jump in if your teammate is already going to deal with the situation. You only need to jump in when you know for certain they are no longer fit to handle it properly. Rotation is all about your understanding of the situation and knowing when and where you need to be. You need to use your awareness to watch the situation carefully and only jump in once you see the proper signs. Times when your teammate is out of boost, has a bad position, or any other reason that prevents them from dealing with the situation properly are the signs that they give you for when you need to jump in. When you know that you'll be needed, you'll be able to use your timing to pick up where they left off without wasting the play. Focus on always being ready to jump in, but only act when you're certain your teammate needs help. It's all about doing more with efficiency. For positioning, the common issue is that players always need to make corrections and find it difficult to perform basic tasks. Positioning is something that sets you up for every single play that you do. Every attack, every save, and every part of your gameplay will always start with your positioning. The difficulty you'll have when dealing with this situation will change depending on how good your positioning is. If you're on the aggressive side of positioning, you'll find it difficult to do anything because of how close you are to the play. You aren't giving yourself enough distance to make corrections that make the situation easier for you. You are forced to either go from where you are or go back to a safer position. If you're on the passive side of positioning, you are far enough to make corrections, but you aren't close enough to act on any of the things you see. In order to fix your positioning, you'll need to find the perfect distance for every play and know what you are trying to accomplish with your positioning. When you are positioning for something, your goal is to make sure that you're able to play for as many possibilities as you can. When you're trying to do this, the distance that you have for every situation should let you be flexible enough to play for these possibilities. You need to be in the position to get to where you are needed at the right time. You need to be able to go back if it becomes too dangerous, and push forward when there's an opportunity. If you are too aggressive, you should try to take a step back and watch the play before getting close. Always make sure that you're far enough away to make corrections, instead of being forced to play from your current position. If you are too far, I also recommend paying attention to the situation, but try to push the limits of your positioning. Try to think ahead of the play, and make sure that you're always ready to play for any of the possibilities. Focus on being in a flexible position, and knowing how much you can get away with before it becomes a problem. For patience, the common issue is that players don't have good enough timing for when they should challenge. For some players, it's a lack of understanding. For others, it can be out of fear of making a mistake. Patience is all about maximizing how much you're able to get out of each play. If your patience is flawed, you'll tend to get bad outcomes out of every situation. If you lack patience, you might be throwing away great opportunities that would have just come if you waited a little longer. Not only does patience give you a new opportunity, it also gives you more time to make an easier challenge. When you're cutting off these benefits by challenging as soon as you can, you are actively making the game harder for yourself and making the situation more difficult for your teammate. If you are too passive, you will have similar problems, but this is arguably worse than being too aggressive. Instead of cutting off good opportunities, you simply ignore the opportunity that's right in front of you. You are supposed to be patient to get more benefits out of the situation. If you don't act on the benefits you see, all you are doing is letting the opponent continue to be a threat. This can turn an easily savable attack into a goal that should have never happened. If you want to fix your patience, you'll need to have a better understanding of the benefits you get from waiting. Not only that, but making sure that your mind doesn't get in the way of you making the right decision. Every situation where being patient is the correct choice will have different benefits tied to it. Baiting the opponent into an overcommit, forcing a specific outcome, or even simple things like waiting to get an easier challenge. Whenever you are waiting, your goal is to commit to the action once the benefit begins to show. For you to see these moments clearly, awareness is important, but you need to be free from the pressure of always needing to get the perfect result in every single situation. Every situation is different, and there won't always be the perfect opportunity to challenge the way you want to. It's not about getting the perfect result. It's about getting a result that's just good enough. Some players are impatient because they never want to miss an opportunity. Others might be overly patient because they don't want to overcommit. The only way to fix this is to stop worrying so much about making mistakes. It's all about improving without having to force yourself to play in an uncomfortable way. If you feel like being patient is the best option, then be patient. If you think you should challenge, then challenge. The more you experiment with your patience, the more certain your decisions will be in the future. The goal is understanding, and if you want to understand, you'll need to give it an honest attempt and embrace your failures. So far, we have narrowed down the concepts, figured out which of them is causing the problem, and finally understand what the correct approach should look like. Now it's time to know how to apply the fix to each of your issues into your playstyle. While it's still fresh in your mind, I want you to constantly think about the part of your foundation that's holding you back. When you have the broken concept in mind, try to focus on what the fixed version of it should look like. For every second of every game you play, you need to make sure that you don't fall back into your old habits, and continue to keep yourself in check. Your goal is to find the perfect balance between passive and aggressive, and have it be a natural part of your gameplay. Don't be afraid to be passive when you think it's the right choice, and don't be afraid to be aggressive when you believe you need to. You need to be aware of everything when you are rotating, flexible enough to position for everything, and smart enough to be patient only when you benefit from it. In Rocket League, balance is everything, so don't be afraid to try new things. Understanding your failures is important, but don't make the same mistake twice and fail to understand yourself. Now that we're talking about understanding, it's time to understand why you haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoyed this, I make other videos that break down high-level concepts, and I think you'll find some enjoyment from it. But anyways, thanks for watching, and don't get tilted.